you have this show geared towards adults, and then you have G-rated violence.
Right. And welcome back to the Sundowners Club. I'm your host, Sean, and to my right is Sterling. What's up, buddy?
Not much. How are you?
I'm doing good, doing good. So today we're going to be covering Andor, Episode 8, titled Narkina 5. Before we get started, if you like what you see today, you like what you hear, please hit the like button and leave a comment below. And most importantly, hit subscribe. That's the way we're going to grow our channel. So first things first, let's get into Narkina 5. Before we get into some of the scenes specifically, overall feel of the episode is we've kind of seen these little 3-episode blocks where they've covered certain stories kind of contained within the larger story. And now we're in the phase of Cassian going to prison for 6 years. What was the overall feel of the episode? How'd you feel about it? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What were your thoughts?
So he goes to this prison, and they spin in great detail, kind of showing you all the technologies in the prison, which was cool at first. But I mean, the episode it definitely dragged along. I thought it was showed a lot of unnecessary scenes. You know, each episode's about an hour long, and I almost feel like it could be 30 minutes, or just maybe do, what is this, a 12-episode season?
12 episodes, yep.
Yeah, I think maybe we could do a 6-episode season. That might be the problem with the show.
A lot of character building, a lot of dialogue, a lot of supposition, and then with each episode, you start to feel like we've had this conversation before. You know, these characters have had this conversation before. The feel of the prison when they got to Narkina 5, it had a little bit of a Camino vibe. It was in an ocean, and they get in there, and everything is just pristine, clean.
Right.
They've got the tungstile steel floor, right, that shocks their nervous system, their muscles, spasms. They go into spasms on as torture to keep them in line. But it had the way that, I don't know if they did this on purpose, but when we first start out in the episode and Cassian arrives on Narkina 5, he's got this look on his face that he had for most of the episode. It was a very odd stare, like he's stunned or he's in shock.
Shocked, yeah.
Yeah. And
I can't believe I'm staying in this prison. Like, I got to stay here.
Yeah, and everyone else seems like that they're just, going through the motions, and it's almost like they're drugged in a way, but he's alert, and it harkened back to me. It had a little bit of a Clockwork Orange vibe, for those that have seen Clockwork Orange. It was one of those movies as a kid that terrified me, and it had a little bit of that vibe to it. But we start out, and he's serving this 6-year sentence on this prison system, and pretty quickly we meet a character named Chemo, which is played by Andy Serkis. Which I think is really cool. I'm a big fan of Andy Serkis. He's done so many characters, motion capture.
Yeah.
And
usually CGI when you see him.
Right. He's great just in everything he does. So I liked seeing him. We don't get too much from him right out of the gate, other than he's the boss of the assembly line, right? So they're making parts, which
but he's still a prisoner.
Yeah, which one would assume is for the Death Star, right? Yeah. So could be wrong there, but they're making these parts, and he's just trying to keep everybody, throughout the shift to win their shift, right? Mm-hmm. And so we get a dose of that, and then it cuts to a scene that I did enjoy just because I wanted to see more of Deidre with the ISB. We see Cyril being interrogated by Deidre. So do you like that scene when they finally had these two? I'm still trying to figure out what Cyril's role is going to be, but they were finally, two of these actors were in the same room, and I thought that was a pretty good scene. He's got the creepy vibe, and she's playing an Imperial officer, I think as good as we've seen anybody play an Imperial officer. What did you think of that scene? Did you like that? Did you feel like it was going somewhere, or it's laying the groundwork to go somewhere?
I mean, they kind of set her up to be this big bad, or like maybe she will be. I don't know, but Cyril's kind of he's just kind of lame to me. He's not. I don't know what he is.
Yeah, he has a blow up the building vibe type character, right? Like the disenchanted. He doesn't fit anywhere. He's trying to find his place. He's got the mother that's scolding him, and he's cereal, but he's eating cereal. I don't know what the deal is with that, with the blue milk, but
They brought back the blue milk.
they brought back the blue milk. But I did like the introduction to some of the characters in the prison system. That Cassian is introduced to through Chemo, played by Andy Serkis. And then they show you things that almost again we keep going back to. It feels a little bit like Blade Runner. It feels like some other sci-fi movies, but does not have a Star Wars feel. When they go and he's laying on the bed in the room, they eat and drink through a tube, and they there's no privacy, right? And if they step on the floor and they have a certain amount of time to get off the floor, or else they get fried. So we see that, but and then we cut to Luthen, who travels to a planet called Segra Milo, and we finally get to see Forrest Whitaker, a.k.a. Saw Gerrera. Did you feel like that was a distraction for the story as it's moving forward, or did you like that cameo and that tie-in to the Clone Wars and Rebels and Rogue One? And
no, I think it needs more tie-ins. I mean, that's I think that was probably one of the better parts of the episode, but because we talked earlier about how there's just a lot going on that doesn't really seem connected with the greater Star Wars universe, and I think that kind of connected things. Sal's not like he's not one of my favorite characters or anything, but I mean it's still cool to kind of see how it ties in with.
Yeah, he's not really a rebel. He's an anarchist,
right?
I mean, that's who his character is, and so from one moment to the next, if he helps you, he may not help you in another scene or another episode. So you really don't know where that's going to go. We know where we saw his character in Rogue One later on when he's on Jeddah, but so where they're going to take him, I don't know. I wasn't distracted by it. I'm like you. I feel like that they need more tie-ins, and I think opinions can vary on that, and I respect other people's opinions that they don't want any tie-ins to the Force or to Jedi or to some of these other characters. They like exploring what is seen as the rest of the universe, the galaxy that has been persecuted by the Empire. One thing that keeps throwing me off, though, is it's all humans. Where are the aliens? This is on Disney Plus. It's a Star Wars.
There's not any aliens
IP
in the prison either.
There's none. Everything that Star Wars has ever done, you have aliens, and it's with each episode. I keep thinking that that's going to change, or they'll bring in some different characters. I mean, I don't know why you couldn't bring in an alien character that has speaking lines in a larger role. Like,
right?
That throws me off. I think all the actors are really good. They do a great job acting. I think the cinematography is great. I think that the actors are doing a great job. I'm getting with each episode, I'm getting more and more confused about what's the payoff here. We saw Rogue One, and Rogue One had the dialogue and the character build, and then you have the scene on Jeddah where the Death Star strikes, and then you have the dialogue and the character building, and then the middle part where they go to the planet and they face Jyn Erso's father, and he dies. And so then you get to the end of the movie, and you have the Battle of Scarif, and so there's this flow to it, right? It's like music, and this doesn't have that. It's just a lot of dialogue, and to the point where, I'm bored. I'm getting bored, and we're 8 episodes in, and I'm thinking about, okay, we've got 4 episodes left. Did we need 12 episodes this season?
No, I don't. I think we could have done it in 6.
I wanted 12 episodes of Mandalorian, and we didn't get it. Now I'm thinking that Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau were brilliant for doing that, because you want to be left wanting more. You always want to be left wanting more, and Star Wars is no different. And so, I was a little bit bored by this episode. I enjoyed Andy Serkis. I enjoyed seeing more of Deidre, and she finally took over and has tied in what is the beginnings of a rebellion and stealing parts from different systems and trying to make it look like this is isolated and she's onto them. And so I like that part of it. And then the Luthen, I really like Luthen. You're starting to see this character that is gone by the time you get to New Hope, but this character is much a builder of the rebellion as Mon Mothma was. We just didn't know it. So I like seeing more of Luthen. I've said that repeatedly. And then we end the episode with going back to Ferrix, where Cassian is from, and Bix has been arrested by Deidre. And so, we end the episode with, she's caught, And now, what's she going to say? Who's she going to turn on? Is she going to turn? What's going to happen to her? Um, you know, not as invested in that. I don't dislike the character, but we end the episode. It was a little lackluster. Final thoughts on episode 8. Not one of the better ones. Average.
I mean, I thought it was pretty boring. I think one of the problems with this show is it's definitely geared towards adults, which I think's a good thing.
It's fine.
Star Wars fans a lot of them are older now, and then you had that new generation that came up with the prequel series, and they're in their early 20s and 30s right now. So there's tons of Star Wars fans that are adults, but it's like they won't fully commit to it, And what I mean by that is you had this scene where you have the hot floor. It was like a hot floor. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah.
And this guy steps on it. Commits suicide basically.
Right, he gets fried. Yeah,
but he doesn't get fried. He's just laying there.
Yeah.
Like he just.
Well, we see him from a distance, right?
But you don't see smoking or sizzling or anything. He touches the floor and he's just dead. And that's you have this show geared towards adults, and then you have
it can't show that.
You have G-rated violence. And
right.
For me, they need to commit. I'm not saying make it gory, but at least make it more.
Yeah, like Game of Thrones shows you that up close in your face.
Right, it's not really intimidating. Like you just is that how that works? You step on something hot and you just die. There's no.
Yeah. So in a Game of Thrones world, this is a prison. This is the result of you not staying in line, and this is the reality of it. Whereas in Star Wars, you see it. That's a very good point. You see it from a distance, but it's 8 cues down, and so you don't really see it.
He wasn't smoking or anything like that.
I'm kind of interested. They released the animated shorts, Tales of the Jedi, at the same time as Episode 8 this week.
I haven't seen that yet. Cover that.
And I'm interested in. Of course, they're never totally, forthcoming about the ratings, but you can see what they put the resources behind. But I'm curious to see the if we see anything around Tales of the Jedi and what sort of feedback that had, even though it's animated, which is definitely pure Star Wars, when you see it, and the audience for that versus this. But, to wrap up, I think it was an episode that didn't do very much to advance the story, other than we saw Saw Gerrera, Luthen was connected to him. We saw Andy Serkis being introduced as Chemo, and we know that Cassian is going to try to get out of the prison, do a prison break, and that's all. We didn't really learn much more. And
that's it, yeah.
So we'll see if they can come back, and they've got 4 episodes left, and we'll see if they can have a payoff and a tie-in that gets people excited about season 2. They've got their work cut out for them. I think they've lost what viewers they had. I don't know what sort of ratings the show is getting. I've seen data that it's the lowest of the Star Wars shows, live action. So we'll see how it turns out. We're going to stick through it. We're going to cover it, and we'll see how it ends for season 1. But remember, again, if you like what you saw today, leave a comment below, hit the like button, and most importantly, hit subscribe. TCB.